Because 8 hours of Madden is not enough.
Not nearly.
No. We're here back the next day for more Madden. My name is Brian Ekberg.
I'm Alex Navarro.
I'm here with Alex. We're here to talk about Madden NFL 07.
As if we did not talk about Madden NFL 07 enough last night.
Here's the thing, though. Last night, we simply played Madden NFL 07.
And boy, did we play Madden NFL 07.
But no judgment.
No judgment.
We were just talking about the game, talking about football. Today, it's on.
It's on. We are going to dive right into my my review of the game for the Xbox 360, the Xbox, the PS2, and the GameCube.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I think the way we're going to start this off here is we're going to have my video review for the game, the actual straight up video review that is always on the Game Spaces, the sort of format everyone's come to know and love.
Yep, that's right. So why don't we take a look at Alex's review of Madden NFL 07 right now.
Last year, Madden NFL 06 kind of disappointed both on the older console systems and on the Xbox 360 when it debuted with the system launch. This year, Madden NFL 07 makes a little bit of reparation for some of the problems of last year, but there are also still notable problems with both. The 360 version has new bugs and new quirks and other little things that just kind of make it feel a little bit rushed out the door compared with how it was last year. And the older console versions, football kind of as you know it on the GameCube, the PS2, and the Xbox, it's winding down a little bit. There's not really much more they're going to do with those games, and it really starts to show in these titles. With all that said, though, this is still Madden. It's still a fun game of football. It still plays like Madden on basically on all versions of the game. Not to mention that it's still, an incredibly deep game on the older consoles, and it's now a deeper game than it was last year on the 360. So most of the new control features in this year's game are across the board. They're in the older console versions, they're in the 360 version, they're just all over the place. Not all of these are really kind of game-changing features. The biggest new thing this year probably is the whole lead blocker control system, which is kind of a crazy thing where you can, before the snap, if you're doing a running play, you can just kind of switch around the players on the offensive side of the ball, and basically you can block for the runner, which might not sound like the most appealing thing in the world, but what it does is it kind of lets you control the running game more than you ever could before, because you can now sort of open up your own holes, and the game actually lets you switch back to the running back as soon as you've laid in your block, so you can just run straight through that hole and just go. Another addition is the highlight stick, which kind of also, again, makes the running game a little bit crazier, in that you can use the right analog stick to sort of do these various juke moves and, power moves and kind of stutter steps and whatever that running backs do to kind of avoid getting tackled. It's not the most necessary thing in the world. You can still kind of do the jukes with the buttons, and if you're sort of an experienced Madden player, you don't necessarily need to use this, but you'll want to, because it actually does make, kind of doing jukes and kind of getting around defenders a lot easier and more intuitive. There's also a new kick meter, which isn't really the most necessary change in the world, because the old kick meter pretty much worked fine, but this one's good. It actually is probably a more accurate representation of real kicking, in that you sort of have to, you line up with the arrow like you always do in a kick meter, and then you sort of press back on the right analog stick to line up your power, and you have to press forward to sort of set your accuracy and the power level. The reason why this is more accurate is because whatever angle you press up at is the angle at which you'll be kicking at. In actuality, that kick meter was sort of a holdover from NCAA football, which came out earlier this year. And actually, another feature in the 360 version that's not in the other older console versions is the whole jump the snap option, which also was in NCAA this year. Basically, what you can do is you can kind of press a button right as the quarterback is about to hike the ball when you're playing defense, and you can kind of sort of get a nice jump on the blockers and just go straight at the quarterback and get, basically a little advantage. As far as the feature set goes in this year's game, you look at things like franchise and online mode. Neither has really sort of changed drastically across the board on any platform. The 360 version of the franchise mode is still kind of a skeletal, sort of barren franchise mode. It has all the basic features, slick menus, and whatever, but it doesn't have any of the sort of the kind of pizzazz that the older console version has. It doesn't have the Tony Bruno radio show, it doesn't have the whole newspaper thing, it doesn't have owner mode, any of that stuff. Conversely, on the older console versions, the franchise mode really hasn't changed much at all. There's a new rookie scouting thing where you can kind of put rookies through the paces, both in sort of the, I think the Senior Bowl game, and also the, you can kind of put them through individual workouts to learn more about their rookie reports and that kind of stuff. But other than that, basically the same franchise mode you've been playing for the last couple of years. Same kind of goes for the online. On the 360, there's actually a new feature where you can actually play your franchise mode games online. Unfortunately, we also kind of ran into some connection issues trying to make that work. But the actual online play still runs functionally. You can go against people head-to-head, kind of do the usual basic EA Sports online stuff. And then there's the Superstar mode. Superstar mode returns this year in the older console versions, and it actually makes its debut on the 360 this year. And both modes, for the most part, are basically the same, but there is one very compelling new feature, which is this whole influence system that lets you actually kind of take control and upgrade the players on the field, depending on what your role is as a player. Essentially, you start out the game with a low level of influence, and as you just make plays, you earn points that go toward this influence level. And as your influence level goes up, you can take on these roles on the field. Like, say, if you're a quarterback, you could be a field general, which lets you upgrade your offensive line and your passing accuracy and decreases the defensive back awareness on the field. There's just a whole lot you can do with it, and that's pretty cool. You'll still have to kind of suffer through a lot of the annoying quirks, and on the older console versions, you still have to deal with stuff like, doing movie roles and, getting haircuts and other weird stuff, but at the same time, the mode is just better this year than it was last year. So beyond all the changes that I've mentioned already, the older console versions, the GameCube version, the Xbox version, the PS2 version of Madden, really don't have much else to offer that wasn't already in last year's game. As far as the Xbox 360 version goes, the big graphical updates from last year are still big graphical updates this year. There's some new animations, a few of the bunching problems that you had with like blockers and defensive linemen all kind of bunching up on each other. It's not as bad this time around, but there's also a few other like animations that are a little overused and maybe a little clunky and janky in spots. So in the end, Madden NFL 07 is kind of an improvement on the Xbox 360, not much of an improvement on the older consoles. As far as the 360 version goes, yeah, it's got some fit and finish issues. It's definitely not as tight of a game of football as it could be, but the additions do really add to the depth of the experience, and the fact that the Superstar mode is actually kind of fun this year is great. It's nice. It's nice to have it there. No matter which platform you end up going with, you're going to get a Madden experience that's very similar to what you got last year. And if that's all you're really looking for, you don't need anything too game-changing or major, you're going to enjoy it.
So there you go. Alex, that's your football review for this year for Madden NFL 07.
Yes.
It's a, I guess summing up, it's a similar game to last year, but there are some important tweaks that maybe people who haven't played a Madden game in a while would probably be interested in. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, very much. I mean, the thing is, a lot of the control changes and a lot of the tweaks made there are, across the board. They're on all platforms. Mm-hmm. I think the most important changes are on the 360 version, adding in the Superstar mode, adding in the mini games, which, I actually didn't necessarily love that much, but at least they're there. They add some depth to the experience. There's just, they did a lot more with the 360 version this year than they did necessarily with the other console versions. So, that game's still great and everything on the PS2 and the Xbox and the GameCube and whatever, but it's also, not necessarily, a huge leap forward for that stuff, which isn't necessarily surprising considering, it's kind of getting down to the end for some of those consoles. Maybe you don't want to put as much development focus on that stuff, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're here now to answer your questions. Obviously, Alex and I are going to be here for the next, 10, 20 minutes, whatever you guys want to do. So
surely
send us your questions. I know there's a question box somewhere. I'm going to do the Rich thing where I point to one corner of the screen.
Yes.
I know there's a box
now
in there.
You're pointing to both corners.
I'm pointing
so
behind me. Well, that's what he does. He points to both.
Oh, okay.
So he gets them all.
Right.
So send your questions in. We're here to answer your questions. Alex, why don't we dive right into a couple questions that I've already got. Let's see here. Well, there's been a lot of questions about lead blocking, and we've got one here from Vinny Sierra in Bakersfield, who asks, what's so great about the new lead blocking feature? Is this a plus to the Madden feature?
It's certainly not a minus, I'll say that much. I mean, it's the kind of thing where, you initially look at it and you start messing with it and you think, I don't ever need to use this because, playing as a blocker does not intuitively sound fun. It does not sound necessary. But, one of the things I think a lot of Madden fans have sort of complained about over the years is that the blocking AI is not always great. Some blockers can do some really dumb stuff, when it's just left at the computer. So I mean, the fact that you can switch back to the running back as soon as you open up your lane and can just kind of go is a really nice, it's just a bonus to that whole thing. And it actually lets you just take a lot more control of the running game than you ever could before. So, I mean, you learn the strategies of it, you learn the timing, you start figuring out where you're supposed to be blocking and doing what and whatever. And as it goes, you can just kind of come up with a lot of, kind of new and interesting running strategies using that blocking control.
Now, in your experience when playing the game and you're taking control of a blocker, how is the AI with the guy running the ball who's being controlled by the computer? Is it good? Is it bad?
It's hit or miss. I mean, the thing is, you're going to want to switch back to the running back as soon as you can after you lay in the block, because sometimes they'll just miss the hole that you've just, you've made this big, wide, gaping lane, and then they'll suddenly bounce to the outside and, get stuffed by some outside linebacker. So, it's hit or miss. There are times when they'll figure it out. There are times when they won't. The thing is the more you practice in getting in control of it yourself, the better.
Okay. A lot of people have been asking about a pretty specific issue with the game. Danreb Victorio from San Jose asked...
Oh, I know him.
Yes. Did EA fix the error they make every year since 2004, that being having the free agency signing period before the NFL draft instead of vice versa?
I'm not kidding. I actually know him.
You do really?
I do know. He's one of our moderators.
What's up, Danreb?
Yeah, hey, what's going on, man?
Good seeing you, man.
Sort of. Basically, there is, as I recall, there is still a franchise or a free agency period before the draft, but now there is actually a second free agency period after the draft. So after you've kind of gone through and signed all your rookies and whatever, and players have been cut loose or whatever, you can go in and you can sign those players that have been cut by other teams. So as I recall, there is now 2 free agency periods. So at least in the regular console version. I don't remember if they added that into the 360 one or not.
Okay.
But, it is what it is. I've never thought that was such a huge deal. I've been honestly, over the years, I've been more annoyed by the fact that you can't trade draft picks after the draft.
Right.
That's so annoying to me. But, whatever. I'm nitpicky.
Everybody's got their nitpick.
Yeah, that's my one thing. So.
All right. Charles Robert Hess from Martinsburg, West Virginia, your neck of the woods. Says, I don't have the game yet, but I was at my friend's house for a little and he had it. The commentator, I guess he's talking about the 360 version here. He says the commentator was not Madden. Does he commentate or not?
Not in the 360 version. He is totally in the PS2, basically all the console and PC versions and whatever, but he is not in the 360 version at all, except to do the Ask Madden stuff. So, like, when you ask Madden for play advice or whatever, he has some glib remark, it's saying, winning is the key to winning a football game, something along those lines.
Insightful.
Very insightful. But the commentator in the 360 version is the same EA Sports radio announcer that was in there last year, and I personally much prefer that dude because he is way more enthusiastic than Al Michaels or John Madden ever is. He has that radio announcer guy voice down. Yeah. He's just like, the 30, the 10, touchdown. Al Michaels doesn't do that.
No, he doesn't get too excited.
Al Michaels would have a stroke if he tried to do that. So I much
after do you believe in miracles? He hadn't peaked.
Yeah, he's got nothing left. That was his peak. He's got nothing left.
Here's what I think they should do with that radio announcer thing. I think that what they should do is get the local radio announcers for every market and use that guy for that team.
I'm sure right now there's some guy at Tiburon cringing, trying to think about the amount of storage space the disc has versus that.
It wouldn't be anymore because I guess you're right. It would be, but if he said the exact same lines.
Yeah, they said the exact same lines, but they'd also
would be a lot of script writing.
A lot of script writing.
Yeah,
but I don't necessarily. They need a color guy at least to kind of go in there and sort of balance him out. But just that dude is still an improvement.
Yeah. Let's jump around and go to Superstar mode.
Superstar mode.
Tanner Holmes in Peachtree City, Georgia, of course,
Georgia,
wants to know, does constantly playing as one position in Superstar mode fun, or is constantly playing as one position in Superstar mode fun, or does it get boring after a while?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the position. You're playing quarterback, that is not really that boring, because, you're obviously doing a fair amount on the field, and, even on running plays or whatever, you're not controlling the running back, and you're obviously not controlling the defense. But even still, you're still doing enough to where it's interesting and it's engaging. I mean, there are some positions that are just boring as hell. Defensive back, I hated. The camera angle.
It's really tough.
It's really tough. Yeah. The camera angle is not good for that position, and you just don't do very much. At least from a tangible, hold the control in your hand and do stuff perspective. And offensive line is similarly kind of dull. But wide receiver, running back, quarterback, the main positions that, even linebacker to some extent, that stuff's pretty fun consistently. I enjoyed those.
When I was reading your review, which will be up later today on the site,
yes, it will.
It seems like what you really liked about Superstar Mode wasn't necessarily playing in individual positions, but was you really like the influence system that's in there.
Yeah, the way they have it set up, so like basically, you can kind of earn these roles as on the team, as many players tend to do. Like wide receivers have their own specific roles. Quarterbacks, they can kind of be the lone wolf type. They can be the team leaders. They can be the field generals. That kind of stuff. And the way you can kind of use those roles to sort of like affect other people on the field, if you're the field general, you can totally upgrade the offensive line. You're the team leader, you can upgrade the awareness of like other offensive players and that kind of stuff. If you're the lone wolf, you're just upgrading your own stats and saying to hell with everyone else. Which if you're Terrell Owens, that's probably what you're doing. So
yeah.
And yeah, I mean it's a really neat system, and it's kind of addictive too, because you just want to try and get your influence up as much as possible. Like keep upgrading your dudes, and the points you upgrade with only last for each drive. Like you have to assign new points after each drive. But if you keep boosting up your influence as time goes up, you get more and more points to work with every time.
Now, as you're building up points, can you use those points only for your own team, or can you use them, say, against the other team?
Well, you can't use points against the other team, but like there are certain roles that will affect the other team negatively. Like the field general one, which I mentioned before, it basically decreases the awareness of defensive backs. So it makes it a lot easier for you to kind of basically get balls by them. So there are ways to affect the other team. It's just not as you don't drop their rating by a certain number or whatever. So
I just said a magic word.
What did you say?
I said the word points.
Points.
And when we think points, we think Xbox Live achievements.
Yeah,
so what are the achievements like in Madden NFL 07?
They're better than 06 was, that's for sure. 06 didn't really have any, didn't have it had the click the right thumbstick achievement, which is, I felt very special after doing that. But as far as the actual achievements list, most of them either pertain to the Superstar Mode, like certain career stat levels, like throw a certain number of touchdowns over the career or in a season or whatever. And there's also a lot of single season and single game records, like most interceptions in a game, most rushing yards, that kind of stuff. And then there's also the usual stuff like win the Super Bowl, pitch a shutout on Al Madden, which is only worth 20 points, and no one's ever going to do.
No one is.
There's just a lot of stuff like that, and it's a good achievements list. I got probably 60 points without ever playing football, which is how it should be. You should be able to get at least a decent number of points without ever really doing anything special.
It's like showing up to the SAT, you get points for putting your name in there.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to play a lot of Superstar Mode to unlock a lot of those achievements.
Yeah. That's right. People are asking, including Justin Thompson from Bellingham, Washington, is asking, is there any reason to get the Hall of Fame edition on the 360? I guess they want to know about the extras on the DVD.
Extra disc with the extras on the DVD. Well, you watched a little bit of that last night. That was right before I went to bed last night. I was watching up to that point, and I started watching some of that stuff and just kind of, I don't know, maybe that's sort of an indictment of that stuff. But, I don't know. I thought the Madden thing was a little bit interesting, like the sort of behind-the-scenes thing with him. The thing with Trey Wingo where he sort of talks to the developers, I guess, seems like it could be kind of interesting. I really like the fact that there's a documentary about the bands on the soundtrack is mildly offensive to me. I don't know. That's just because I don't know, whatever, marketing. But I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. I think that you could just as easily get by without, buying the Hall of Fame edition, personally. But, I mean, unless you're really into Madden Nation, since it does have all 8 episodes of that.
All 8 episodes. So if you're into reality, video game, TV...
And I'm not.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, I'm not so much. But, I think you just easily get by just not getting the Hall of Fame edition. Buy the regular game. Don't give in to kind of lame special editions.
I see a lot of questions from people asking, this may be a little bit too specific, but people asking about rookies in the game, how they're rated, Reggie Bush, Mario Williams, just based on what you've seen of the game, how do you feel rookies are rated or player ratings?
Pretty
good?
Predictably. Yeah. The first round picks are all kind of rated high. I don't remember really spending that much time staring at the ratings for Mario Williams or Reggie Bush or whatever.
What?
But
why not?
I don't know. I was playing the game itself. I was actually playing. I don't know. But, I mean, yeah, it seems like they're rated pretty fairly. Yeah. The thing with Madden is with the player ratings, they've never been very mean about, rating, any player of note whatsoever. I mean, most players in that game are in the 70s. And, most players in the 70s at least can do something on the field. So it's not like, they're giving everyone 30s and 20s and whatever and saying these guys are all worthless. So.
Yeah. George Royal in jolly old England wants to know what musical delights are on the soundtrack.
I sent some sarcasm in that email because, I know what the UK thinks of our football.
Yes.
So, it's a predictably scattershot collection of, like random alternative rock, emo, and like hip hop. And it has the NFL Films music remixes that were in the game last year, and also an NFL head coach early in the year.
Cool.
But it's I don't know. I've never been a big fan of the whole licensed bands in a football game soundtrack. I like the NFL film stuff. I think that's cool.
Very appropriate. It sets the mood.
It does, and even the remixes of it sound right. They sound like they belong in there. But I guess there is only so much NFL Films music to work with. Like NFL just won't hire more people to make more music. Right. So instead we get Dashboard Confessional.
Sorry. Well, one issue that's been happening a lot lately, people have been asking about this fatigue issue that's going on with the game. So what is that? What's going on, and how is EA addressing that?
It's kind of a weird thing because apparently, the 360 version, the fatigue meters don't work. And whether you believe their explanation of, oh no, fatigue itself actually does work, it's just the meters that don't go down, or you think more insidiously and say, well, that probably just means fatigue actually doesn't work. I don't know. I'm not a programmer. I couldn't tell you for any certainty as to which part of it is broken. But yeah, fatigue meters don't go down. EA has gone on record saying they're going to patch it probably sometime this week, I guess. I don't know. That's good, I guess, but they also shouldn't have shipped that feature broken in any way. So that's how I look at it personally. It'll probably get fixed, but the fact that it has to get fixed at all is kind of dumb. So
we must have a pretty large overseas contingent watching this right now, because I'm getting a lot of questions on how you feel Madden would do for someone who's maybe never played American football. Do you think this is a good introduction to the game? Do you think someone would be able to dive right into it?
I don't see why not. You turn the difficulty down, and you just kind of go through some of the tutorials and look through some of the not that the manuals really have that much to show, because the manuals this year are a little bit pathetic, I'm not afraid to say, but it's not, if you know the rules of the game and you just kind of tone the difficulty down to start messing around with it. Don't go online or anything yet, for the love of God, until you've had some time to mess with it. But yeah, no, it's not too hard to get into it. Like I said, a lot of the control upgrades this year with the highlight stick and the block controls and all that stuff, you can kind of get by not using that stuff, at least for a while, and at least on the earlier difficulty levels. And that's why I say don't go online, because right now there's some guy just mercilessly working away, figuring out all the strategies for that stuff, and that person will be very mean to you if you try to play them.
Absolutely. Speaking of online, one of the new additions, and we may have talked about it in the review itself, but the live franchise games.
Yes.
What's that about?
Basically, on the 360, you can take any franchise mode game, and what you can do is you can sort of turn a toggle on when you get to the team select menu and set it to a live franchise game. And what that'll do is that'll put an invite out through this this Xbox Live queue, where users waiting around can sort of jump in and play. And I think you can also invite friends from your friends list to come play the game as well. And so you can just play your franchise games online. And that's, it's not a thing where, it has any effect on anything other than, you either win that game in your franchise or you lose that game in your franchise. That's just what happens. So, but yeah, that's pretty much that mode in a nutshell. So.
Okay. But there still are some differences between franchise mode in the 360 version and the current gen. There's still a gap there, right?
Oh, there's a notable gap. In fact, I like the menu presentation in the 360 version better. I just like all the menus in the 360 version better. But as far as just it has the basic functionality stuff. You can do the 6 basic steps of off-season progression. Draft rookies, sign free agents, all that kind of stuff. But none of it just doesn't really have that snap, that pop that the old console versions has. It doesn't have the Tony Bruno radio show, which I actually kind of liked. It doesn't have any of the newspaper headline stuff or the email or any of that. It's the basic franchise mode skeleton that we had in last year's game, and it's improved in little small ways here and there, but for the most part, it just doesn't have the same depth to it that the old console version franchise mode has. Especially considering this year's console the old console version has the whole rookie scouting thing, which is new, which is where you can play the college all-star game to check out rookies, and you can actually put certain rookies through individual workouts with like the mini camp games and stuff to see how they stack up.
Okay. And then there's, you mentioned it, but the mini camp, we've got the 40-yard dash, you've got the weightlifting thing, and position-specific drills. What are your thoughts on
Not as good as the old mini camp stuff.
Okay.
It's like I don't like the 40-yard dash or the bench press stuff. Yeah, really much at all. I mean, it's just not much fun. Like, it's kind of interesting from like a superstar mode perspective, like when you're just using it as workouts to, you know, gauge yourself, you know, see how well you're doing, you know, how fast you are and that kind of stuff. But as far as like actually going in and just playing that stuff in mini games, it's just kind of boring.
Okay.
The position-specific stuff is kind of based on the minicamp stuff. Like, there is a chase and tackle mode that's sort of like the running back and the basic chase and tackle from a minicamp, and that works fine. The quarterback thing is just a coverage reading thing. The wide receiver thing is it's just you against a defensive back, and it's also the defensive back mini game. So
right.
You're just trying to who can get the ball first kind of stuff. It's just not as fleshed out as the minicamp of old was, and I kind of wish they'd just bring that back because I really like that stuff.
Dean Grove from Germany wants to know about lag in the online game.
I didn't really see much, honestly. I mean, you and I played some online games, and I played against a few people that were sort of from outside our our office circle on the PS2 and Xbox versions, and I never really ran into much lag at all. I guess I noticed a little bit in the 360 version, but it was pretty minimal. I mean, I don't know if you noticed much
it seemed to play fine to me.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, as with all online games, your mileage will vary depending on your connection and who you're playing against. So. Personally, I didn't see that much. I didn't see anything to suggest that there's anything wrong with the servers or anything. I think it plays fine.
What's up with the whole Madden gamer level thing? What is that?
That, yes. The Madden gamer level is exclusive to the 360 version. It's sort of like the old Madden card system, but not quite. It's basically, as you go through the game, as you play games, sim stuff, do stuff, whatever, you earn points towards this Madden level. And it goes all the way up to 50, and these points, like every time you level up, you unlock Hall of Fame players in the game. And there's like this whole list of like 100 some odd Hall of Fame players that you can basically, they'll go into a free agent pool and you can play as them. And one of the funny quirks about that is that they also will show up in your franchise mode and superstar modes if you don't load up, like basically if you don't save your roster when you first buy the game and don't unlock anything. You will probably end up running into those dudes popping into your franchise in superstar mode more than you like. So you should do that.
Okay, so we're wrapping up here.
Okay.
Let's get to the bottom line.
Get to the bottom line.
Let's talk about which version of the game would you buy if you could only buy one.
Okay. The funny thing is, this is the version I'm not giving the highest score to.
Okay.
I would probably buy the 360 version over the other ones, just because it's the biggest leap forward. It's I think EA has actually done a pretty good job here of getting things more towards the, what next-gen football should be on that console. Okay. And I think the Superstar mode is pretty compelling. It doesn't have any of that dumb movie roll stuff in that version of the game. It's a little bit more stripped down, but it's stripped down in the right ways.
Right.
And it has enough content to it to make it worthwhile. It's got some bugs. It's got the stuff with the, the fatigue and all that stuff. But I genuinely enjoyed playing it this year, whereas I was just kind of disappointed with it last year.
Okay.
And as far as the older console versions go, if you don't own a 360, you're not doing yourself any particular disservice by getting the PS2 or the Xbox version, or even the GameCube version, I guess. I mean, you don't get online that way, but it is also $10 cheaper this year. So
right. Yeah, that's not bad.
But yeah, I think that it's still a pretty great game of football on the old consoles. So I would recommend any of them to whatever console owner wants to buy a new football game.
Should we talk some numbers?
I suppose we could talk some numbers. I know the text review is not up yet.
That'll be going up later. We'll have a full text review, but I've been getting, people want some decimals.
People want some. They want me to use decimal system. Yeah. All right. The Xbox, the GameCube, and the PS2 version are all getting an 8.1.
Okay.
The Xbox 360 version is getting a 7.9. A
little bit up from last year.
It's about 0.5 up. Yeah, like I say, I think it is an almost great game. It's just not quite there yet.
Okay.
It's very good though.
Well, there you go, guys. That's our video review for Madden NFL 07, and the text reviews will be up later today, the end of the day, most likely.
Indeed.
So be on the lookout for that. I'm Brian. That's Alex. Everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for the crew for putting the whole video review together. Thanks for Bethany for moderating our Madden marathon last night. Thanks so much. I know you were up late, and we'll see you guys later.